Hello, my name is Paula Coomer, and I'm the author of two books that you might want to have in your kitchen. One of them is called Blue Moon Vegetarian, and the other one is called Blue Moon Vegan. Blue Moon Vegetarian is actually a memoir of about 18 months in the lives of myself and my husband as we transitioned from regular old-fashioned omnivores to vegan. And what had happened to the two of us is that my husband especially started having some health problems. And even though I wasn't having health problems, I was having significant weight issues and some pretty unhealthy habits, and understood that if I didn't take control of my life, I was going to be just as sick as a whole bunch of other people that are walking around on the planet these days. I also had, at one time in my life, been a registered nurse. I have a bachelor's degree in nursing. So I had a really good understanding of the human body, and also based on the years that I'd spent studying nutrition on my own, I had come to a point where I believed most sincerely that most of our health problems were related to lifestyle, and specifically related to what we were putting in our bodies, aka processed foods. The book had a pretty good following, good enough that my publisher at the time, a company in Seattle called Booktrope, was interested in having me bring out a cookbook. And so that's how Blue Moon Vegan came to be. And at the point that Blue Moon Vegan came out, we had switched completely to a vegan diet. And in the meantime, I also discovered that I had severe gluten intolerance. And so I also had to become gluten-free. And probably what the first question that might come to mind is, what on earth are you supposed to eat? If you're not eating meat and you can't eat wheat, what else is there, since most of our diet is made up of animal-based products, and obviously we tend to eat a lot of bread in our culture. So yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that kept me up nights for a little while. But at the same time, I was determined, and lucky for us, we live in the day of the internet, where Google is our friend, and there's almost nothing that you can't find out really quickly. And it turns out that there's a universe of people out there who are doing the same thing. People who have come to understand that, first of all, animal-based protein is not good for us. Animal fat is not good for us. That's long been established. You probably heard it referred to as saturated fat. It clogs our arteries and causes us to have things like heart attacks and strokes. There's some indication that eating plant-based protein also is one of the culprits in the development of diabetes, and that has to do with inflammation, and that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later. But what I discovered then is that there were plenty of people who had gone down this road before me. The vegan diet is nothing new. People have been adhering to this way of living for many centuries, and perhaps even in some cultures for thousands of years. Also, there was a little thing called the China Study that was done in the 1980s, where the government of China decided that they were going to try to determine why it was that American diseases, Western diseases such as cancer, heart disease, and diabetes were suddenly showing up in the Chinese culture. And so what they did was to interview tens of thousands of people and to do blood work, to draw blood from them. And the results of this enormous study, unprecedented study, was to discover that those people who were living a plant-based life, in other words, their diets were closest to 100% plant-based, were the people who were the healthiest and did not manifest those diseases. The people who did have those diseases were the people who were living in the more urban areas and who were exposed to the Western diet. So it didn't take any more convincing for me. I had this desire to live a really long and healthy and happy life so that I can see my grandchildren into adulthood and my own children into their old age as well. And so I made a decision that I was not going to fall prey to any of these diseases, and that I was going to take my health back. And at the same time, my husband had been diagnosed with diabetes. At that point, we weren't even husband and wife yet. We didn't meet until we were 50 years old and married about 6 years ago, so in our mid-50s. But he had a terrible high blood pressure. He was on 3 different kind of medications. They were barely able to keep it under control. He had to have a surgery, and we nearly lost him in surgery because of a blood pressure spike. So it was clear there was something that he had to do as well. So he started on the road with me, and we recorded all that in this first book, Blue Moon Vegetarian, and also at the same time discovered that we were both actually rather inventive in the kitchen. Even though I had been a good cook for all of my life, and he's actually won prizes for his cooking, neither of us had really stepped outside the boundaries too much and started working outside of established cookbooks or recipes that had been created by other people. So once we began to understand this about ourselves and began to give ourselves free rein in the kitchen and began to explore all the new variety of ingredients that were available to us when we were trying to figure out things like how to get enough protein and how to get all the nutrition that we needed from plants. It was sort of like having a new holiday that you weren't expecting. We were just really ecstatic over the fact that we both had this ability to develop really yummy recipes that people were exclaiming over. So rather than just keep that to ourselves or to what few people we might happen to invite into our home for a meal, we decided to record these and to put them in front of a publisher and to put them out into the world. Once again, it's Blue Moon Vegetarian and Blue Moon Vegan, and both of these books are being re-released actually in the coming year by a publisher from Texas called Fox Press, and you can order them at any bookstore or, of course, online as well.